Alright guys, rode out here to Horseshoe Lake to do a little rundown on the upgrades I've done on this 89 Honda NX250. Wind calmed down for the moment, but hopefully it's not too bad on the mic if it does pick back up because it's a fairly breezy day. Start off with doing a little bit of a walk around here. Has just over 37,000 miles on it, running factory gears, 13 and 41 I believe it is. This is a ATV mid bar from Pro Taper. Made it a little bit wider, a little bit taller, much more comfortable, especially for when you're standing up riding down the dirt trails. In order to do the wider bars, ended up having to run a different clutch cable. Ended up finding a brand new turn signal and high beam, low beam cluster, exactly the same as the factory unit, except for this one came from, I believe it was a 2009 Honda Rebel. Even the wiring was identical colors. So did have to splice it in just because of the length of the wires, make sure everything fit. But otherwise, yeah, everything was the same color, hooked right up. It was very nice. In case you do ask, the actual connector, they moved where the pins were, but otherwise it was the same connector. So you probably could, if you wanted to pop some of those pins out, you might be able to get it to plug right into the NX's harness. Like I said, it was a little bit on the short side, so don't know if it would reach even if you did do that. This cluster does have just our factory choke. Basically identical, just 20 years newer. Hard to beat that. Then over here on the other side, I kept killing my master cylinder. Had it rebuilt it a couple times. Kept breaking mounts off of different ones. So this one is actually off of a KLR 250, and it's got the banjo fitting up front here instead of on the side. Ended up ordering new stainless brake line for it, once again so that it would reach properly, and also because the original master cylinder I had threaded directly into the side of it, so it didn't have the banjo fitting, so had to replace that. My throttle here with the kill switch, I also swapped this out just because, as so many of the pieces out there are, they bleached out from the sun. They're gray, no longer black. So this is also from a Honda as well, but it is a CBR 250R, and it has a little bit slower throttle response than the bike did before, but I also had swapped in a different throttle tube from like a WR 250. It just barely cleared in the other housing after grinding a little bit out. That made for a really snappy and fun bike on the street because you got full throttle and almost no turn of the wrist, but was way too touchy on the dirt. So with this new CBR 250R throttle, it works really good in the dirt. It's not nearly as snappy. You can modulate the throttle a whole lot better when going slow and low gears. The only downside on it was that one, I did also have to splice into the wiring harness, and it didn't have any of the same colors. So that was a lot of disassembly and chasing wires and figuring out which ones match up. These cramp busters work great. Tons of different brands, sizes, shapes, but they definitely help a lot on the longer trips, in my opinion. My mirrors are the double takes on ram mounts. They just thread right into your normal mirror threads right there. Just got to get the adapter, and then added another one for any other accessory. Right now I also got a GoPro Hero 3 viewing back at me, or I can spin it around and have a look forward. Got a couple of those on another bike that I have, the Honda CB500X, which is where the windshield came from. Basically, this is the tall factory windshield from that 500X, and it had horrible buffeting on the freeway. So I wasn't using it, and decided to give it a try on here. After taking a look at it, it was actually going to be at a steeper angle, more vertical than it was on the 500X. So I figured since it's at a different angle, that might help with the wind buffeting. And man, works perfect. Gets just enough wind off of your chest to help with the freeway. So far, doesn't move around too much or anything like that, just attaching it right there. So works great. Was able to repurpose it instead of just being at a loss on that money. So don't know if I'd recommend it for you guys. It's a little bit on the spendy side for probably most anybody. Like I said, I was able to repurpose it and not be out the money, so it worked for me. And then I just recently rebuilt the forks, or at least changed the seals on them. They were leaking pretty bad. I got rid of the boots, as you see, and tried these little neoprene Viper dust guards. And today is the first day with them, so I mean they seem to be working just fine, but only time will tell. Ended up putting in larger spacers to add some preload in there. The previous owner, they got these Race Tech stickers on both sides, claimed that had the nice springs in it, but turns out when I opened it up, the springs looked factory to me, and there was the PVC spacers that a lot of you guys end up using to give it a little bit of preload. Problem was is that one side was about 5/8 of an inch and the other side was 7/8 of an inch, and it was pretty darn soft as it was anyways. The oil that was left in it that had leaked out was just like sludge, just black as could be, smelled horrible, full of dirt and debris. So at any rate, cleaned everything up really well. Ended up putting some male threaded coupler fitting for 1/2 inch PVC in there. The actual thing measures about 1 9/16 of an inch in overall length. I think they work pretty darn well. I mean, they're a little bit thicker, the sidewall, because of being the coupling. So I don't know if any of the other PVC pieces have been getting chewed up or flex at all, but these are definitely more rigid than just regular 1/2 inch pipe, and it handles great. Definitely when you're standing up, putting extra weight on that front tire doesn't seem to dive as much in braking conditions. Running 15 weight oil. Was going to run 20, but everyone's sold out, so I went with the 15, and it seems to be working great. It's spot on with the front. No complaints there at all. The only other complaint for suspension actually would be rear shock, as almost everybody complains. I swapped out to the yellow SV650, and I do have it on the maximum preload, and even then I bottom this thing out like crazy. I don't jump it, it's just running down tough roads like what I came in here on. Just rock. Don't do a whole lot of sand and such, but if we spin around here, there's the road that I came in here. Got a couple of big rocks here and there. But yeah, that thing just bottoms out all the time, so I'll probably be changing that out or adding some shims in there is what I might do as well. Try and get some large shims or fender washers that are big enough, notch them and compress the spring, slide them on in there, see if that helps. Got DR650 Footpegs. Did have to add a little bit of shim inside of them, keep them on there straight with the factory NX250 bolt. What I'll probably do here in the future is just drill out the foot peg mounts on the 250 and use a larger bolt so I can get rid of those shims. I also placed the spring on the kickstand because it was way too loose, so I just went down to Ace Hardware and found a new one, and works perfect. Keeps it up there nice and tight without flopping around when you're going down the dirt roads. Definitely worth it if you guys have any problems with that. I also ended up using a MSR shifter. What I did have to do with this is I used a plumber's torch to heat it up and bend it out away from the case, which then actually had the little toe piece here was at a really funky angle. It was forward like that. So what I did is just filed the back side of it off right in here. So took off probably almost 1/8 of an inch on that far back corner. That was able to get it to straighten out, and it works pretty good, especially with stiffer boots on. You got plenty of room there between the shifter and the peg. And that also, by using the plumber's torch, I was able to get this rotated up one more notch on the spline. So this is actually, I believe, a little bit higher than most of the shifters I've seen out there, just by one notch. But it clears just fine. I also lost a chain about a year ago, so that killed the little cover there, case saver. So I ended up making that one out of, I think, 16 gauge. There was a factory hole in the frame right up here on this little tab, and so I basically just got a self-tapping screw that I went through there. It sits on top, bends back in here, and sits on top of the engine case, and then it still uses the other factory bolt right up under here. You can see it there. So seems to be working pretty good, nice and tight, and I'd be really surprised if that doesn't hold up. Then I got the crash bars and skid plate. That's from Scrambler on the ADV forum here. Luckily, I have not had to test them yet, but just in case, I do have them. And then back here, I flipped the rear brake linkage, so it's now up on top instead of down below, being a rock catcher. Pretty simple to do. I know a lot of people do it, but just take the pin out of the back, flip your linkage. I did have to add a little bit of a bend right here. Wanted to rub against the swing arm just a little bit, and it worked out just fine. Finally is the rear here. Just have a 1 liter MSR fuel bottle, just velcroed on basically. These are gotcha straps. Not sold in the States, got these from Australia, but you can get them in all different sizes, but it works great. This is a Seahorse box, just keeping some miscellaneous stuff in it. Camera bags, snacks, air pump, things like that. It has a nice weather tight seal up here, so keeps all the dust and any water you come across out of it. Did have a handle, I just took that off so it wasn't bouncing around. You can save about 20% on these versus going with a Pelican case, and they're almost the exact same construction. I mean, they're nice, heavy duty, not going anywhere. Have 4 bolts going down through it, sandwiching it to the factory NX250 rack, so it'll be good, no problems. And I think that's pretty much everything for right now. Obviously gave it a different paint job. I was tired of being invisible to everybody on the freeway, so I decided to paint it traffic cone orange. I can't tell you how many questions I get from people walking up asking if it's an old KTM or not. It's kind of comical. And then the seat, that's something I did forget. The seat I had reupholstered and reformed by a local upholstery shop. It cost me about $90 2-3 years ago. It's just a little bit broader, and after about 5,000 miles on it, I gotta say a big improvement over the factory seat, and night and day difference between a lot of other dirt bikes. At any rate, I think that's pretty much everything, guys. Just figured I'd give the update, let everybody see what's going on, and catch you later.